So every once in a while, as an author, I like to remind my characters that they're not, even though they're gods, they're deities, they're creatures of paranormal variety and mythological origins, that I like to remind them that they too can die if they make really dumb mistakes. This scene in Monster comes from Book 2, Roma Santa, Father of Werewolves. And this is where Roma Santa gets ahead of himself and runs into what I found in medieval bestiaries called a Jidra. A Jidra was like this crazy plant thing that ate people and travelers. So if I were a dark sorceress and I knew a war was coming up and I dealt in Chimera, I think my garden, my hedgerow, would be full of Jidra and possibly other things. So without further ado, I will read to you guys the moment that Roma Santa messes up, because this is a lot of fun, and this is not even, I guess this is midway in the book you get this scene that unfolds. Breaking from the woods, Roma Santa made it to the eastern gate. Howling long and hard, he let Nextmas know he had arrived and would follow through with his job as a decoy. A toothy grin stretched across his muzzle as Roma Santa took in a deep breath. With great speed and force, he rammed his shoulder into the wooden gate. It shattered, the excitement of destruction goading him on to devour all opposing him. The aura of battle shifted its focus to the power that made their skin crawl. The Ancient One, the father of werewolves, had freed his animalistic supremacy for the first time in hundreds of years. Vines wrapped around Roma Santa's ankles, knocking him to the ground. Swiping his claws with precision, he cut himself free. Screeching rang out as he leaped back to observe what had attacked him. A Jidra had emerged from the ground, something rarely seen this far north. Shaking off the surprise, he felt relieved his nose had not failed him, since the ground could mask many things. The Jidra were curious beasts, spending most of their time underground, only leaving to feed. It unfolded its red as blood protective petals, revealing the yellow tear-shaped center with its slit full of sharp teeth. These teeth were interesting, since they were the tips of the ribs, which helped give the Jidra its shape. They also made it impossible to escape if eaten. Roma Santa was not shocked that Morrigan possessed one, once their bones were famous for their magical healing properties. Another round of vines flowed out to him. Swiping and dodging, he sidled to the side, only to feel the grip of vines on his ankles once more. Looking down, it had pushed these out of the ground under him. It had planned ahead, something he had not realized it was capable of doing. Reaching down was another mistake, as vines wrapped around him, tying his arms to his sides. His jaw smacked the ground as he fell forward. He was being dragged closer to the drooling bud of a Jidra. Growling, he clenched his teeth as he glowered at the fleshy tongue behind the teeth, vibrating in excitement. Straining against the vine, he could not break free. They tightened with each movement he made, adding to Roma Santa's frustration. He eyed the vines. They would not be following him within the toothy prison of the Jidra's mouth. A wicked grin crossed his face as he lifted off the ground. The slimy, sticky tongue stretched out like a frog's, gripping him tight and securing its prey. The tongue wrapped him in its heat, filling his nose with its rotten stench, and he felt the vines fall away. In an instant, he was sucked into the gap. Teeth raked and ripped his shoulders and legs as the Jidra pulled him into the mouthy cage. He felt it quivering as his blood dripped and ran against the inner walls of the bud. The tongue had let him go, lying across the exit and protecting what it had eaten and aiming to keep him until he rotted to a slush. He pushed against the walls. The ribs were impressively strong. Romosanta had made a mistake in thinking he would be able to free himself once inside. The air within the bud was dissipating fast as more saliva poured around him. Snorting, he snarled in annoyance as the Jidra's drool stung at his cuts, thinning the blood and encouraging him to bleed out. It was a very complex beast for a plant. The bud tightened around him, earning more growls from him as he fought for space. It rocked and shuddered, shrieking as it battled something from outside. Romosanta dug his claws into the tongue, hoping to coax it from the toothy exit. He was growing lightheaded, dizzy from the lack of oxygen as he shredded the tongue. His fangs dug in, ripping and shaking the tongue free as his fury grew. Once more, the Jidra rocked as something slammed into it from where it held its mouth closed. Desperate, he slammed his claws between the teeth. It took several attempts before he managed to get between the bony razors with two of his fingers. Suddenly, the creature rocked back, lifting off the ground before slamming down on its side, with him still inside. His claws slipped from their wedge, earning an angry roar from him. Light blinded him as its mouth involuntarily opened, and it wiggled as it withered away from him. Pulling himself free, he looked over at a blood-soaked Nectimus panting from his efforts. He had sent the beast rocking before getting his grasp under the bud, ripping it free of its root. The Jidra could not survive if it was severed from its connection to the ground. Both sighed, exchanging grins. "How did you know?" Romosanta shook his fur free of the Jidra's foul-smelling drool. "I was struggling to do anything against the beast." "Did you learn anything from the Rangers at Williamsburg?" scoffed Nectimus, who flopped down to rest as the war went on around him. "Wasn't it the Lady Ranger Anne who was hired to collect Jidra bones all the time?" That's where I'm going to leave you guys. But again, that nice little play with Nectimus, his companion, his friend, his person who grounds him and protects him a little bit. But this is from Romosanta, Father of Werewolves. It has a lot of mythology and dark history and medieval bestiaries mixed into this. And it is one of my favorite characters, I think, that has been developed in this series, and you get to see more of him throughout the series. We're up to book 5 now, if you guys are curious how many books are in this series as of today. So, and I'm working on book 6, so much to tell.